In this video, we will talk about layer adjustments. Now, this is different than layer styles. Styles is styling the layer based on different things such as stroking the layer and adding shadows and bevels and embosses. Layer adjustments are allowing you to adjust this as if it were an image and we were using the image adjustments. So you're going to see a lot of the things that you would see up here when you go to image adjustments, things like brightness and contrast and vibrance and so forth. Those you can do on a per layer basis, which is really nice because just like layer styles and masks, you work non-destructively, which means when you come up here and you make an adjustment, let's say we come up here and we change the brightness and contrast and we hit OK, it has saved that into the layer and you can't go back. Unless you have history, you cannot go back and make an adjustment here. However, with a layer adjustment, you can do it on a per layer basis or a group basis, make that adjustment, and if you don't like it or you need to make a change later on, you have the ability to do that. Let's go ahead and rename this layer city. That way we can work on it, it's not locked down, and we have full control over this layer. And if we go down to the bottom, next to the layer mask button, you will see create new fill or adjustment layer. If we click on that, we are given a lot of different options here. Now, I'm going to try to go through most of these. I won't be able to go through all of them just to save some time, but they're going to work just like the layer adjustments for images. So the first one we have is a solid color, and if we click on that, it's going to fill a new layer with a solid color. So we can turn that into red, and then it gives us a mask that we can also work with. Now this is just a solid color layer, but we have the ability to go in and make changes to this layer later on. Let's go ahead and delete that one. We can make another one, which is going to be a gradient. So this will just create a nice gradient for us. And here we can see some different effects. So this gradient is using a transparency map going from black to transparent. And we have a linear style with this angle. And so when we hit OK, you can see that it's creating that layer adjustment and putting that gradient at the bottom going upwards with that black layer there. We can do the same thing with patterns, so we can add a patterned layer here and we can scale that around however we see fit. So we can make that bigger or smaller and we can change the pattern to whatever pattern we would like here. And then we have some other options as far as changing the brightness and contrast, levels, curves, vibrance, hue, saturation, and so on. We'll click a couple of these and go through them, but we won't go through every single one. But let's just say we want to do brightness and contrast. So we can select this brightness and contrast, and we can affect the layer beneath it, but it's not affecting the actual image itself. So this has created a new layer. We've bumped up the contrast and the brightness. It's created a mask so we can mask out certain parts of this, but it's affecting all the layers that are directly beneath it. And if we turn off that layer, you can see it hasn't affected our original image. So this is a great way to come in and make adjustments. Maybe we like this image and we want these cabs to pop a little more, but we don't want the rest of the background to pop. Well, we can add this brightness and contrast, get those cabs to pop, and now that we have a layer mask, we can go ahead and start removing the pieces or adding in the pieces we don't want. So I'll give you a quick demonstration. Let's inverse this this layer mask here. We do it like we would inverse a selection. Hold down Control or Command and hit I. It inverses it. Now we have a black layer mask on our brightness and contrast, so none of it's being shown, and we want to show the pieces that we want, which is the cab. Let's grab our brush, make sure white is selected because that's what's going to bring it in for us. And now we can begin painting in those cabs and making them pop like we wanted to. And the reason why that is working is because we are using an adjustment layer, which is a brightness and contrast adjustment layer. It's affecting all the layers beneath it. And we are using a layer mask on top of it so that we can actually bring those in and make these cabs pop a little more like we wanted to. And you can take a look over in the layers panel. You can see the mask that I've drawn there, and if we hide this, we can see what's happening. We have this brightness and contrast layer with the layer mask, and it's affecting just the parts that we drew in. Now you can start seeing the great benefits of using masks and layer adjustments. We can check out a couple more here real quick. So we have things like our levels, our curves, our exposure. Vibrance is another big one. So we can turn up the vibrance here and do kind of the same thing that we would have done before by affecting the layer mask. Throw that one away. We can do things like photo filters, which are great. So we can create a photo filter here. Maybe we want to do let's do a magenta filter, and we'll crank it up here. And it's affecting that layer beneath it. And then we can, use our layer mask to cut away or brighten up the pieces we want. So here we'll just cut away here, and that photo filter will only be affected where it has that layer mask, and I'm deleting out the mask right here. You can see it happening over in the layers panel. So the layer adjustments will allow you to adjust the layers on a per layer basis, and you can do all these different adjustments here just like you would have in image adjustments. The only difference is with image adjustments you are going to be set to the whole image, where here it's a per layer basis. I'll show you one more, and I suggest you come in here and play around with these and you can mess around. One that I use is called this gradient map. We click on that, and this works just like a gradient map in image adjustments. Now, if you remember, the gradient map in image adjustments works on the pixel value from light to dark, 0 being black being 0 and white being 100 or 255, 100% or 255. So what's happening here is that, well, let's go ahead and change this to a different one. Okay, so what's happening here is all of the darker or black areas are receiving the left end of this gradient map, which is this purple, and the high values, or the whites, or the 100% or 255 is receiving the right side, which is this orange value. So we've created a gradient map across our image, and that gradient map is being applied to our layer, so we're not affecting the whole image. We can always hide it or adjust it, and it gives us a really cool effect. Now, when we talk about blending modes, we'll look at this, but now you can do things where you can do like a multiply blending mode, and it's going to use that gradient with those colors, and it's applying it to this layer here that's beneath it, which is the city, and it's multiplying those colors into the image. Now, typically this would be too much and we'd crank this down, but what this does is it gives us a really cool way to adjust our photos and give things like color and apply all these different neat effects. We can come in here and easily change these around and see how they're affected. And it's just a really great way to adjust your images on a per layer basis non-destructively, so that it's not messing up your original layer. If I remove that, you can see our original layer is still intact, and we're just applying a layer adjustment above it. With this one actually has a gradient map with no mask being applied, and we've just multiplied it as a blending mode here and turn down the opacity a little bit. But you can see how we can quickly get some really cool effects with Photoshop by using layers and layer styles, masks and blending modes, and layer adjustments.